Music I love on recordings I hate, volume 6 or episode 6 comes from the CD from Living Colour called Collidescope. I think they recorded this in, or at least released this in 2003. I quite like the songs on there. It's a variation of material, some aligning with their more typical commercial releases in the 80s and 90s, but there's also some that are more jazz rock oriented, I guess. But the biggest issue I have with the entire recording is the inconsistency of the balance for a range of tracks. There are some that are really well mixed and balanced, and others that are really quite off. And the one I'll be looking at is one of the rather poorly managed mixes called Great Expectations. So we can look at that in look at the analysis in Har-Bal right now. Okay, so what you will note here, get rid of that. What you'll note from inspection is the bass guitar is rather boxy, some pronounced resonances there. I think this resonance here ties in with the bass guitar as well. I'm not entirely sure. The guitar of Vernon Reid is quite a bit above the bassline vocal, but because of the dynamics of Corey Glover's, the low bassline of the vocal at the average here is because of the rather dynamic vocal part. You can see that from the span here between peak and average. So the distribution, if you like, the probability distribution is quite broad for that one, as opposed to, say, his guitar part, which is quite a bit narrower. So it has more dynamics in his vocal part. Similarly for the bass guitar, that span is narrower than it is for Corey Glover's voice, which is why there is this hollow here to prevent the peak output from his vocal part leading to hearing discomfort and fatigue. I guess the other thing to note here is there's a bit of weakness here, like it shallows out here a bit, which causes an issue in terms of Vernon Reid, his guitar part masking the cymbals in Will Calhoun's drum parts. It's actually a quite loud mix. It's been, well, as you can see, the average level you can see it's been absolutely hammered as far as limiting is concerned. You can tell that from how high the uppermost bin is in the distribution for peak power in the timeline. So that's like sitting on 40% of the time. It's sitting in the top 1 dB bin, like less than one, from between 0 and -1 dB. It's 40% of the time, which is quite extreme, really. Interesting enough, it doesn't really, well, there's a slight harshness because of it, but it hasn't really impacted other sonic characteristics of it too badly. but it's certainly not as extreme as I would want to do. So how I will approach this in terms of equalization is similar to the way I would approach it with the previous Bryan Adams example that I did. By that I mean, instead of, I guess his trend line, his mixed trend line looks something like that. Just to make it easier for myself, I'm actually going to initially use a flat trend line, something like that, as my baseline to adjust to, because I find it easier than to try and actually judge a sloping line. And then post fixing up the average and fixing up the peak taming issues, at that stage I'll listen to it in the flat case, and it'll no doubt be too bright compared to what Doug Wimbish, who was the producer, was intending. And then we can actually readjust it to better match what the original intent was. So I'll start with that. So again, start by leveling out these peaks. Rightio. Let's make it more uniform, with the aim of making it pretty much uniform across the band in the average, and treat the rest with peak taming when we have to address the issues in the peak spectrum. I don't think I'll boost that there. I might boost that one there. Certainly bring these up. I'll probably leave a little bit of peaking up the top end to bring the metal aspect or the distortion aspect of Vernon's guitar part out. I'll have a quick check to see what we're looking like. That's looking fairly flat. Maybe I will boost that bit just there. Okay. Yeah, I can bring that up a bit to compensate for that little hole. I'd say that's looking quite good. I might bring up the kick drum. I assume that's what that is. Will Calhoun's kick drum there. Now I'll normalize, or not normalize, but bring some more uniformity to the top end here. Something along the lines of, I don't know, something like that. Okay. So that's pretty much our average spectrum treated. There's no issues there, but as a consequence of that, you can see we've got large peaks sitting here and here and in his bass guitar part. We want to make that more uniform, so I guess we'll start with these. Do I want to I think it's just that one. Yeah, that one. That one looks a bit big. That one's definitely big. That one's too big. Right, and these are the vocal peaks of Corey Glover by the looks of things, so we want to deal with those. And could possibly DS that, but I won't worry about that. I'll just see what it sounds like first after I've made the changes. This one's going to need quite a bit of attenuation. Maybe just a little bit too much. This one even more by the looks of things. I'm guessing I probably want to select more time. So what I'll do, yes, sorry, I need to do that. I will adjust that, lower that threshold line so that it selects more. That looks good. And we do this one. Might have to select more for that as well, because it's looking a bit high there. So that's pretty good. I'd say I need to move this down too. Overdone a bit. That's looking pretty good. Okay. Maybe overdone slightly. Oops. Overdone. Gone too far again. Somewhere like that, which actually makes it look like I should treat that one as well, which I'll deal with shortly. Right. Oh, maybe you need to put one on the kick drum as well. Because that peak right there looks a bit pronounced to me. So I might bring that down a little bit. Yep. Now, I wanted to put one here. Probably a bit too much. And we look what's going on here. And that looks all pretty uniform. Maybe another one here to deal with that peak there. And maybe bring this one down a little bit more. And probably undo these a bit. I think I've overdone those. Yep. And that one is a bit overdone too. Now I've gone too much the other way. There we go. So now if we look at the uniformity, that is looking pretty good. Now let's compare the two. Okay, I'll play without first.
Once I was, yeah I was, but now I'm not. Once I would, yeah I would, but now I won't. Once I could, yeah I could, but now I...
So you can really hear the boxiness of the bass guitar. But our post mix sounds, post EQ sounds a bit too aggressive compared to what his original intentions were, because he wanted the bass to stand out more. So two things I can do for that. First thing, let's just give it some emphasis there with a broad brush type change there. And then we use my shelving tool here to just take here and bring it down to something like that, for instance. So if you look at that, this sort of follows the trend line, the exception that that's a bit more pronounced. Now we compare the two, see what that sounds like.
Once I was, yeah I was, but now I'm not. Once I would, yeah I would, but now I won't. Once I could, yeah I could, but now I can't. Once I did, yeah I did, but now I don't. I've lowered my expectations. regret everything you've done and blame everyone. You can regret everything you've done and blame everyone. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my. I was gonna change the world. I was gonna save the world. But I couldn't change the world. I couldn't save myself. Once I held it so close, now I let it dry. Once I ran, you know I always ran, now I prefer to stand. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my.
There you have it, basically. Probably do some minor modifications, but it definitely takes the muddiness out of that bass guitar part. Actually, I think I'll trim that a bit. I'll just bring a little bit more uniformity to the vocal bit there. Maybe add just a tad more brilliance to the top. And I'd say that's getting pretty close to where I think it should be. So you can see we've got a nice uniform slope here. Similar uniform slope here.
Once I held it so close, now I let it dry. Once I held it so close, now I let it dry. Once I held it so close, now I let it dry. Once I ran, you know I always ran, now I prefer to stand. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my expectations. I'm lowering my.
So hopefully you can see from that that approach has brought some clarity to the vocal part. and it's definitely removed the boxiness of the bass guitar, which is very pronounced. Interestingly enough, you don't actually notice it that much until you've equalized it, and then it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's funny how your ears adapt to those sort of deficiencies, which make it difficult to actually produce a good balance by ear alone. I'll leave it at that.